What's up, everybody? Just giving you an update on my 99 Mitsubishi 3000 GT. As I mentioned before, this car was going to be a full down, tear down, repaint. Basically turned into a nightmare of a job. I spared you guys with all the tearing apart and repainting because, again, I'm not a painter. I'm a, not really, not much anything, a jack of all trades, master of none, as I like to say, but I do like to dabble in all kinds of crazy stuff. But I have tore this car all the way down. It still needs the ground effects put on it, front fenders, so on and so forth. I got out here yesterday and stripped the window tint off of it, but the interior is a mess because basically to take off the ground effects, sail panels, and whatnot, you got to tear apart the whole inside of the car. While I was working on this, I rebuilt my sunroof. Got it done a couple days ago and back on the car, but here's the color. If you can see, that's a House of Color organic green is what this car has been painted in. The reason I don't have the front fenders and the front bumper on it is because I want to leave all that off until I get the engine back in the car. No sense leaning over some freshly painted panels and putting scratches in them. So as I was pretty much come to a stopping point here, I decided to come back out and start working on the engine. So here's the engine right now with the mocked up supercharger on it, or I at least have it up on here mocked up so I can make some mounting brackets. But while I had the engine out of the car, so as I don't know if I mentioned or not, but I rebuilt this engine 10,000 miles ago. Ported the heads on it, did a 20 over bore on the cylinders, but it's rebuilt for a high compression 10-to-1, so I don't need to make too much boost in this thing, just because of the higher compression. But what I've done since I've had this thing out is I noticed that my rear galley plug was leaking. My front one was leaking when I put the engine back in the car, so I suspected the rear one was leaking, which it was, because it sprung oil all up inside here. There was oil on the clutch, but I've since fixed that. I boogered up a freeze plug when I put the I was putting the engine together, and this guy right here was leaking when I first put the engine in the car, but after you have the headers on and whatnot, you can't get to it to get it out and replace it. So I did the quick easy fix and put some stop leak in the radiator, which I wish I wouldn't have, but that's neither here nor there. So I have since flushed the engine back out, replaced that plug. You know, I had some small leaks in my valve cover gasket, like down in here where the seal is around the spark plug hole and whatnot. So I'm tearing it apart and fixing all of that. But for right now, for today, I'm just going to kind of walk through the supercharger. So this is a completely custom built manifold for an Eaton M90 supercharger that's flipped upside down. I took a stock intake, cut it off, ran a inlet there. So this supercharger is going to have a front mount intercooler on it because one of the complaints for the supercharger was it was getting the air too hot. As you can see here, I got my throttle body on, had some holes and whatnot, that like right here that I had to have, I put in there to brace all of these pieces. I even have some holes up here that were welded closed. I got to sand all those down before I paint this with ceramic high temp paint. But had to put some brackets on it to hold it all together so I could get it to the welding shop so that they could weld it. So basically what I got going on here is these tubes on the top, only two of them are actually blowing air. This one and this one. This one right here is just a dummy one, but I thought it kind of looked better having the three on there versus if it just had two. And then later, once I get done, I'm going to put a trim piece across here to cover up this gap. So right now, this is kind of how she looks for today. And I put this bar on the back, had it welded on with some threaded holes. So I'm going to brace the supercharger down to these bolts here in the head. I'm going to build some some 1/2-inch pipe brace that kind of holds all that together. I put the snout on the Supercharger. So the Supercharger is being rebuilt. I got the rotors being ceramic coated, and you know, I got a bearing rebuild kit for it. You know, the thing's been completely disassembled. The silencer holes have been welded up, so it'll have a nice whine to it. But I'll get to that later as I go to put this thing back together. And then I got my exit tube here, which is going to come out and then go down into the front mount intercooler. So as you'll hear me say, probably through this entire build, is I would not advise anybody doing this. If you have a front wheel drive SL and you want to boost it, probably just twin turbo it. You know, I mentioned in a previous video that I have all the parts to twin turbo this one, but this kind of became a passion and a desire, and it's a lot of work. You know, there's a lot of fabricating, trying to figure things out, a lot of money spent. Just as an example, this bottom pulley, I'm going to a 12 rib crank pulley. This was my over underdrive pulley that I had on here, and I'm going with a 6 rib, as you can see here, a 6 rib Supercharger pulley, which then I mean I needed to go to a 6 rib power steering pulley. So the Supercharger will be run on these two with the crank pulley, and then 6 rib on the alternator and AC. I'm going to keep the AC on this car, but this pulley here alone, I think I got it on eBay for, it's a Whipple Supercharger 12 rib. It was like $140 for the pulley, and then I spent another $250, maybe $260 to get a hub made so that it could basically take the backside of this pulley with the right spacing with a smaller shaft to go inside of this hub, and then had these holes drilled. So, you know, that's easily $400 just on that pulley alone. Then I had to buy a 6 rib idler pulley, have a piece machine so that I could take the center bearing out and be able to press this onto the power steering pump, which my spacing is off a little bit on this one. Basically got to space every outside pulley out by 4 millimeters to get all the ribs to line up. These will be easy. They're just, you know, I got little spacers made to space these two out, but then the AC is a bigger challenge because as we know, we got a oversized AC pulley on this thing. So what I did is I had a shop machine me a spacer that went on here, and then I had some new holes drilled, so that'll space this entire pulley out to line them all up. So a whole lot easier done with the engine out of the car than to do this with it in, because, you know, you just ain't got the room, and you can't get good measurements and whatnot. So in future videos, I'm going to show you how I did the tensioner, and then we'll go from there. So hope you guys enjoyed what you see so far. I'll give an update soon on hopefully this whole engine wrapped up. I got a new set of header sport, got to put some O2 sensor holes, bungs in and whatnot, and then I'll show you guys what I did for the throttle cable and how I was able to get it ran without hitting the Supercharger. So hope you enjoyed watching. Catch you guys later.